Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you're watching this video lecture. After the discussion of various theories related to international trade, let us move on to Unit 2 of Chapter 4, consisting of instruments of trade policy. What kind of instruments the governments naturally use as part of the trade policy is the subject matter of this unit. So before going to various instruments, let us understand first of all what is a trade policy. Trade policy encompasses all instruments that the governments may use either to promote or to restrict imports and exports. Of course, in general, not necessarily always, but in general, any government would like to increase the exports and decrease the imports. Why is that? We have seen that in the national income chapter itself. Exports will be adding to the national income, they act like injections to the national income. Imports are leakages to the national income. That is why any government in general would like to have their exports increased and imports decreased. But of course, that does not mean for every type of commodity or service they will have the same policy, or they have a choice. If we want to have export of crude oil, we don't have a choice because that is not available in our country. We have to import. Almost India depends 90% of its petroleum requirements on imports. That is not our choice. That is the reality. That's what is natural resources all about. We don't decide on them. They are there in the nature like that. What we can do? So we have to import. But the point is, while doing so, maybe those items we can become self-reliant, where we don't really have the pressure to import, or we have a choice of manufacturing them ourselves in the domestic territory. That is why the objectives of policies like Make in India also try to reduce the imports as much as possible and make the goods and services manufactured and rendered in India domestically as much as possible. But once again, those are all the efforts that governments always try to do. But through what type of instruments it will actually implement that policy, those are called the instruments of trade policy. So simply, the trade policy is about all the instruments that governments use either to promote or restrict imports and exports. We cannot have a generic rule that always governments will encourage exports or always governments will restrict imports or vice versa. It depends upon the nature of the item. It depends upon so many factors, starting from the natural availability of them to the requirement of the country locally. For example, we want exports. Yes, anybody wants exports. Any country wants exports. Then why do we ban export of onions for some months in the year? That is a policy. Because at that time, maybe the prices of onions in India have skyrocketed. Because of ban on exports, we can divert that supply to within our country, and maybe we can have a check on the rising prices of onions. So government will ban export of onions when it wishes, and when the situation becomes normal, it will lift the ban. These are all quite common things. They keep on happening throughout the year. Something banned, something encouraged, something discouraged, some subsidies given sometimes, some penalties levied sometimes. All these things are part of trade policy of the government. But of course, this is entirely related to imports and exports, and that is why it is part of the international trade. And what type of instruments the governments might use as part of their trade policy? There are broadly three types of instruments. Naturally, these are the three different segments of discussion in this particular unit. One is Tariff measures, tariffs, also we can call them as duties. Customs duty is the biggest example of that. In India, customs duty is more famous. Throughout the world, these are called tariffs. And there are some non-tariff measures also the governments will take, which are not related to the financial type of duties, financial levy of duties, but there might be some other measures which are not tariff measures. Those can be called non-tariff measures. And sometimes export related measures also can be taken by the governments. So in this unit we are supposed to look at and understand what are different types of tariffs in general and what are different non-tariff measures that will be taken by the government as part of the trade policy, and what some kind of export related measures also the governments might take when they implement this trade policy. That is our scope of Unit 2, Chapter 4. Let us start with tariffs. What are tariffs? Simply we can just use a synonymous word, customs duty or tariff. Both of them more or less mean the same, and these are basically the taxes or duties imposed on the goods and services which are imported or exported. Lot of times people have a misconception, common people, that customs duty is only on imports. Not necessarily always. Of course, usually yes. Usually customs duties are levied when you import some goods or services from outside India to India. By the way, as an example, we'll always take India, but that does not mean the topics that we are discussing are only restricted to India. These type of measures are taken by any country in the world. Every country will have its own type of trade policy, but we naturally have to focus on our country trade policy, so we take India as an example. But the words, concepts of international trade, the instruments what we are looking at, these are all international. This chapter itself is international trade. So the theories of international trade are not only applicable to India, they are applicable to the entire world. Same way these measures or instruments of trade policy are also not only applicable to India. Anybody, any country will use some instruments according to their choice. But obviously because we are interested in our country India, we look at what our trade policy generally is and we take examples like that. So some other country, if the same discussion of non-tariff measures or export measures will come, they will not discuss onions. Maybe they might not have onions at all. They have to maybe import the onions throughout the year. So for them, the ban on export of onions is not an example, naturally. But for India, that is an example. So that is a application of the international trade principles so that we can understand to our country's situations. So whenever the discussion happens, naturally we focus on India, but that does not again anyway mean we are only discussing something which is a local subject. No, it is an international subject. So tariff is a word used throughout the world. Customs duty is more popularly used in India and Commonwealth countries, majorly the British word, that is. American word is tariff. Both of them are meaning the same. They are basically taxes or duties imposed on goods and services which are either imported or exported. So simply speaking, this is a financial charge majorly. It is not something else. It is money, monetary charge, financial charge in the form of tax, usually imposed on imports. So it is imposed at the border on the goods going from one customs territory to another. So when goods are traveling from one customs territory to another, one customs territory usually is one country, another customs territory is another country. If the goods are going from one country to another country, before these goods enter this country, the person who is sending them has to pay some duty. That is what is customs duty. And this is not something new. If any of you watched Mohenjo-daro movie, though it was a flop, which showed almost say 4,000 years back story, wherein Mohenjo-daro as a city used to be a trade center and lot of people from other countries also used to come and trade there. So anybody who enters the city itself, they have to pay tax, and those who sell their goods in the mandis of Mohenjo-daro, they have to pay tax again. So this system of collecting the taxes was always there. Anybody coming from outside to our territory, they have to pay some tax. That used to be always there. It has changed the forms over the period of time, and here now in this modern world we are calling it as a tariff. But it is a financial charge in the form of a tax imposed at the border on goods from when they are going from one customs territory to another customs territory. That can be the technical definition of tariff. And what is the aim of them? What is the objective of the tariffs? They are aimed at altering the relative prices of goods and services imported so as to contract the domestic demand for foreign goods. Usually, customs duties are levied on imports. So, whenever we say customs duty, though technically we know it need not be only on imports, it is also on exports, but we have to assume that we are looking at customs duty on imports only, because that is the most popular thing and that is what normally happens. We should not look at the exceptions always. We should look at the main thing. Main thing is customs duty on imports. Why customs duty is levied on imports? Why tariffs are levied on imports? So that, simply speaking, the imported goods become costly. The price of the imported goods become costly, so that their domestic demand should become lesser. With the normal principle of demand supply, when the price of a commodity increases, the demand for the commodities decreases. So artificially, the customs duties will distort the prices of the commodities which are imported. They will alter the relative prices of the goods and services which are imported, with an objective to contract, means reduce the domestic demand for foreign goods or services, and thereby regulating the volume of their imports. Otherwise, too many goods will come and flood the country, maybe at a very cheaper price. With that, what happens? The domestic demand, our local manufacturers might not be in a position to compete with that flood of foreign goods at a cheaper price. And then eventually, the people who are doing the manufacturing or service activities within the domestic territory, they will be extinct from business. In other words, if we don't have this tariff mechanism, any country can just almost dominate other country with its cheaper products, and local market, local manufacturers and local service providers may not be staying in the competition. They might be kicked out of the market over a period of time. And that is not good for any country, because naturally, when we look at simple logic, when we have people of our own, and when there is somebody who is coming from outside to our home, okay, whoever is coming from outside to our home, we call him guest. We definitely treat him well. Atiti Devo Bhava. We believe that. Maybe we give him coffee or chai or samosa, and that's all. We will not let him hit our own person at the home. No. That person cannot be against the interest of our home, because our home is our home. Our people are our people. First we have to protect them. Those who are all coming from outside and selling goods and services to us, they are welcome. But to what extent? As long as they don't destroy our local business, as long as they don't destroy the domestic manufacturers and service providers. So that is the nature of any country's thought process. Again, that is not just restricted to India. Any country would act in the same way. Any country will definitely look after their own businesses than other businesses. So that is why when some other person or other businesses are selling their goods and services to us, if at a cheaper price, then what we can do is we can levy customs duty or tariff on those goods and services, so that the prices of those goods and services becomes more and the domestic demand for such foreign goods become lesser and lesser, so that we can regulate the volume of such imports. That is the major objective of tariffs, a very important point. And of course, other than this, the other goals of tariff is to raise revenue for the government. Eventually, tariffs means customs duties is one of the revenues for the government. No? One of the indirect taxes that Indian government collects majorly is customs duty. Actually, nowadays, though, there is no other indirect taxes. It has become only GST on one side and customs duties on the other side. These are the only two indirect taxes that central government is collecting now. But customs duty definitely is one of the definitely one of the major sources of income for the government, yes. And that is the same case with any government also. But more than that, revenue is just one part. More than that, the main objective of tariffs is to protect the domestic import competing industries. Our own industries we have to protect. Because these industries, our own industries, our people's industries in our country are competing with the imported products. So to whom we have to give preference, to whom we have to give protection, to the imported goods or our people, naturally our people. So what we are doing, we are charging the imported goods with a financial charge. We are not banning them completely. That is not possible also in all cases because of World Trade Organization and so many agreements that we have entered into in multiple forums, which we will discuss in the next unit. But yes, we can definitely have our own protection. Nobody in the world can say, you cannot levy customs duties. You have to always have a very light customs duty. That is not officially possible to force any nation like that. But yes, negotiations, talks, some bit of pressure, some bit of diplomatic pressure, these all things are common. For example, if you remember, Donald Trump has very seriously told against India a couple of years back, saying that India is levying very heavy customs duty on the motorcycles like Harley Davidson. 150% customs duty it was, 100%. If let us say anybody in India wants to import a car, the customs duty is mind-boggling, 100%. So this is one thing I personally also knew when I was coming back from abroad to India. Because I loved that car, what I used to have, I thought I will bring it with me to India. I just checked the customs rates. Then I said, thank you very much. Let the car be there only, I'll only come to India. Because 100% customs duty. And that too, a car which is used, not a new one also, used car. And the depreciation rates are so less, that is another problem. Allowed in the Customs Act, the depreciation rates on the used cars are so less that the original value of the car there in that market is as not actually that much. But that comes to a very heavy amount in Indian market. That means it was not worth it. Why? Because if this is allowed to everybody, maybe everybody will buy imported cars only. What happens to our domestic industry? What happens to our Maruti Suzuki? What happens to our Tata, our Mahindra? And of course, though they are not ours, but manufactured in India, cars like Hyundai and all. These are all manufactured in India. We need to protect our automobile industry. We cannot let all the imported cars flood our country. So that is a kind of measure that governments take to protect the domestic industries which are competing with the imports. Of course, when this automobile customs duties are so high, Donald Trump was very upset, President of United States then. And then he was almost in every press conference, wherever there was a context of India, he was cornering India, telling that, oh, customs duties of India are very high and all that. Then, for whatever reasons, definitely, not that he can force us or pressurize us, but being a reasonably friendly nation or lot of relation in trade related matters at least. So what India did as a courtesy measure is, they reduced the customs duty from 100% to 50%. But still it is 50%. That's a different story. But yes, halved almost. In some of the cases, the customs duty was 150% earlier. Particularly the luxury bikes like Harley Davidson and all, 150% was the customs duty. From that, because of the continuous crying actually of that person, Donald Trump, we said, anyway, who will import Harley Davidson and all, let them import, no problem. So we'll reduce the customs duty 50%, like that they said. So point is, it is all in our hands. We want to increase, we want to decrease, we'll decrease. It is about our choice, depending upon the diplomatic trade relationships that we will have with other countries. If the relationships are very positive, we will also respond very positively, telling that, oh, very good, friendly, all friendship, very friendship will be good. If relationship goes negative, then we will definitely hit them with higher tariffs. That is how it works. So the point is, this trade relationships and trade policy is a part of the foreign policy also. It is not just purely only related to business. Generally, it will not be like that. It is part of the diplomatic policy of the country also. External affairs, relationship of our country with other countries, how is it politically also matters. And that will be reflected in the trade policy also. That is the only point we need to understand, though we don't have to be politically really looking into all these things for each of the items. But it is reality that trade policy is part of the, we can say, diplomatic policy of any country. It is political. It is not purely business. Business is reflection, but behind that there will be definitely some relationships, political pressures, so many other factors will play. That is a big game. International politics is a very complex subject. We don't have to get into that. Let us stick to business. That is international business, which is common to have tariffs wherein any country can charge customs duties on the imports so that they will increase the price of the imports and protect the domestic industry, at the same time earning some revenue for the government. That's what is about tariffs. Then let us look at different types of tariffs. Each of them can be a short note question. What is a specific tariff? There are broadly two types of tariffs. After that there will be like hundreds of types of tariffs. We don't need to really worry about them, all of them much, though we can have some names just. What is a specific tariff? Specific tariff is usually something which is an import duty that assigns a fixed monetary tax per physical unit of the good imported. Physical unit. For example, per kilo, per ton, per unit, like that the physical unit is the one on the basis of which some fixed monetary tax is levied. That is called as what? Specific tariff. Then it is calculated on the basis of a unit of measure like weight, volume, etc. of the imported good. Does it involve any value? No. It is just a unit of measure, quantitative. Simply speaking, specific tariff is amount only, it is money only, but computation of this is not on the basis of the value of the commodity that is imported. It is depending upon the quantity of the commodity that is going to be imported. So that is called as specific tariff. If you take example, for example, example only, don't think these are all real. Let us say a specific tariff of 1000 rupees may be levied on the each imported bicycle. Like that government policy is there, let us say. So for each bicycle 1000 rupees. Maybe some bicycles are worth 2000 rupees, maybe some bicycles are worth 10,000 rupees, doesn't matter. According to this policy, if the government applies, though it is rare, if it applies, if government says specific tariff is 1000 per bicycle, it doesn't matter what is the bicycle. Irrespective of the value of the bicycle, for each bicycle the government will collect a tariff of 1000 rupees. Like that it is fixed monetary tax per each physical unit of the good imported, and it is based on a unit of measure like weight, volume, etc. Since the calculation here does not involve the value of the merchandise, customs valuation is not applicable in this case. What is the value of the merchandise? That doesn't matter. That's what is specific tariff. Simply a tariff based on the quantity than amount of the goods imported. The opposite of that is ad valorem tariff. Ad valorem at value. On value we can say. So value based tariff is ad valorem tariff, which is the most popular one throughout the world. Tariff normally means ad valorem only, because specific tariff has its own limitations. The people might have different types of ways to escape it. Let us say, if the government says there is a specific tariff of 1000 rupees to be levied on each imported bicycle, seriously government said that. What some people can do, they will not import bicycles. They will only import the spare parts of the bicycles and they will do assembly here. They will not pay 1 rupee tariff also. But effectively, each part of the bicycle that is assembled in India actually has been imported, let us say. Then the purpose of charging the customs duty is defeated. So that is sometimes called as CKD condition, completely knocked down. Most of our mobile phones that we are seeing, though which are manufactured in India, we are thinking, sorry sir, they are not manufactured in India, they are assembled in India. They come to India in CKD condition, completely knockdown condition means each and every part is just imported separately, but just all of that are assembled in India and sold as made in India or whatever, assembled in India mobile phones. Like this, televisions, air conditioners, cycles, so many of the goods are there where we import them in CKD condition and we just assemble them here and then sell as a final products. If the tariff is a specific tariff, these goods will escape the customs. That is why that is not a good thing or a, you can say, scientific thing to have specific tariff. There might be ways to escape it. Might be. The answer for that is ad valorem tariff. On value tariff, which is based on value. We don't care about quantity and all. Whatever is the value of the goods that are imported, on that a percentage of tariff is levied. So this is a percentage of some customs duty on value on. That is called ad valorem tariff. So an ad valorem tariff is levied as a constant percentage of the percentage of monetary value of the unit of the imported good. It is not based on the quantity, it is not based on the weight or other physical units, but it is based on value. That is why it is called ad valorem. While Latin word ad valorem, because it is Latin word, it is generally in italic, that you can understand. So while ad valorem tariff preserves the protective value of the tariff on home producer, it gives incentives to deliberately undervalue the goods price on the invoices and bills of lading to reduce the tax burden. Possibly, see, people will always try to do something to avoid tax. That is natural. There was a problem with specific tariff also, where people might import it with a different name altogether. Here, people might say value of the goods is less. They might undervalue the goods price on invoices and bills of lading to reduce the tax burden. That is quite possible also. But actually, it is not that useful for them also. Even if they deliberately undervalue the goods price. Just imagine, originally, let us say the value of a bicycle, some good top end bicycle is 10,000 rupees. Just for discussion's sake, let us say 10% is the customs duty on that ad valorem, let us say. So 1,000 rupees has to be paid on this 10,000 rupees worth bicycle. Right? Now, they said, no, it is not 10,000, it is only 5,000 worth bicycle, they said. That means they wanted to distort the value and reduce it and pay less customs duty. So actually how much customs duty they paid is only 500. So now the point is, with the GST regime, now they have to pay GST also when they sell this cycle. So what happens in the market? They cannot sell at 6,000, 7,000 because they know originally the value of the cycle is 10,000. They are definitely going to sell it for more than 10,000 only. Let us say they sold it for 12,000. Let us just for example take 12,000 they have sold it for. So naturally they have to pay the GST on the value addition that happened, additional amount, even though if they paid already customs duty on that. So remaining amount, definitely they have to pay GST upon. Means what? Whatever they saved by reducing the customs duty got nullified. Anyway, when they are selling this product at real value in the market later. So one way we can say GST has streamlined this possibility of deliberate undervaluation of the goods prices. That is only for understanding purposes, but still, this is an example where we applied it for bicycles. Maybe what if it is applicable for certain goods on which GST is not there, then still they can do this. So that is the inherent limitation of ad valorem tariff, wherein anybody would try to undervalue the goods so that they can reduce the tax burden. And that is why there will be valuation principles and all in the Customs Act, which you will see in the final, in the part of indirect taxes later. But yes, this is one limitation of ad valorem tariff, we can say. But still, in spite of this, ad valorem tariffs are widely used world over. In general, once again, if no name is mentioned, if just a word duty, customs duty, ad valorem tariff is used, if just a tariff word is used also, we should understand we are talking about ad valorem only. So this is tariff basically. If no other prefix is there, just a tariff is the word used, that means automatically it is ad valorem tariff. Specific tariff is not a a very popular measure, of course. That is also possible measure, but not a popular measure. We should know both because we can get questions from any of them. So specific tariff was based on quantity, ad valorem tariff based on value of the goods which are imported. For example, like we already have taken, an ad valorem tariff of 50% is levied by India on the each imported motorcycle like Harley Davidson. This 50% came in after a lot of pressure, or we can say kind of psychological blackmail by sentimental blackmail by Donald Trump. We reduced it, but still whatever it is right now, still there is an ad valorem tariff of 50% levied on each imported motorcycle in India. So that is an ad valorem tariff. Whatever the value of that bike that is imported, on that 50% has to be paid to the government as customs duty, that is ad valorem tariff. And there are many other types of tariffs, and we don't have to be wasting our time in going through each and every type of tariff. There will be so many of them. Some of them there may be just useful. Let us say mixed tariff can be like this, having a ad valorem tariff or specific tariff, whichever is higher. That can be called mixed tariff. For example, duty on cotton. These are examples, not real. Don't think these are the real customs duty rates as per Customs Act. No, they are not. These are only examples. Let us say duty on cotton is 5%, ad valorem 5% ad valorem or 3,000 per ton, whichever is higher. So one of them will be applicable according to whatever the case may be. That type of tariff is called mixed tariff. Compound tariff will have both specific tariff and ad valorem tariff. Say for example, duty on cheese is 5% ad valorem plus. Here it was R, here it is plus 100 rupees per kg. That kind of tariff is called compound tariff. Like that, there are so many of the tariffs are there. Technical tariff based on some technical items, technical measurements. Tariff rate quotas, which will have tariff also, quota also. That means up to a certain quota, up to let us say 100 tons of import, the tariff is different. If you import more than 100 tons, the tariff is different. So those are called tariff rate quotas. Like that, there is a most favored nation tariff, MFN, that is called. Some countries will declare some other countries as most favored nation. For them, the tariffs will be lesser compared to the other countries which are not MFN countries. So we don't need to know what are all MFN countries to India and all. That is all general knowledge, not required. We have to just understand here multiple types of tariffs are there. Variable tariff, preferential tariff. Some countries are so friendly, so close with each other. They want to be like so much of preferential to others. They may give preferential tariffs to some other country. That much friendliness if they have, they will give some preferential tariff to those countries. So possible. Bound tariffs means which are supposed to be levied according to the binding agreement between the countries in some international trade negotiations. Like that, applied tariff, escalated tariff, prohibitive tariff, import subsidies. Import subsidies are opposite actually of tariff. Import subsidy means tariff is a levy. Import subsidy means it is a opposite of that. It is a negative tariff, we can say. Import subsidy is a negative tariff. In the sense, it is not levying money on the imports. It is giving subsidies to the people who are exporting some goods to our country. That is also possible if we are so desperate for something. Let us say a country wants onions. It doesn't have the production at all. Nobody in the world is also exporting them. What it will do? Boss, we are desperate for onions. Please send us, they will tell. World is saying, no, we are not interested because we need onions ourselves. Then that country may say, boss, please send us. We'll give you import subsidies also. Rather than we charging on your value more over and above. We give money to you if you export to us. That means when we import, we give subsidy to you. Like that, the countries may tell in the desperate situations. Quite possible. A lot of countries will not have all the goods that are required by the citizens. That is common. Every country does not have the resources. Every country does not have the capacity, production capacity or technology to manufacture or render any kind of goods or services. So international trade is inevitable, and in such conditions of desperation, definitely import subsidies are also given by some countries on certain goods. Then tariffs as a response to trade distortions. Other countries and other businessmen from the other countries are doing some trade distortions. As a response to that, there can be tariffs which are levied, whatever the meaning it may be, whatever the reason it may be. These all tariffs are only talking about reason. Why is it levied? Who cares? We tell something, the reason may be something else. That's all possible, politics. No? So these names do not matter, the reasons actually do not matter. What matters is what happens. When a country wants to levy tariff on the imports of the other country, it will do. As simple as that. It will tell 100 reasons. That is all just justifications. But tariff can be levied, and if it is levied, it can be levied broadly on a two ways. One is specific tariff and one is ad valorem tariff. And mixed tariff, which consists of either one of them, whichever is higher, and compound tariff, which consists of both of them. These are the only types of tariff we can say. Specific, ad valorem, mixed, compound. Remaining things are different situations, we can say. Those are not just always just the types of tariffs. Those are different situations where the countries will decide upon the rates of tariff. That's all. These are the various types of tariffs at a broader level. Now, very important question also, concept also, anti-dumping duties. First of all, we should know what is dumping. Then we can understand what is anti-dumping. So what is dumping? Dumping occurs when the manufacturers sell the goods in a foreign country below the sales price in their domestic market. Let us say China is selling some mobile in their country at $10, but they want to sell the same mobile in India for $5. That means it is as good as dumping. In their domestic territory, they are selling at a higher price, but they want to sell at a lower price in other domestic territory like India. Imagine, as an example only. I'm not talking about any particular mobile. Then that amounts to dumping. When any manufacturer sells the goods in a foreign country below the sale prices in the domestic market or even below their full average cost of the product. Actually, the cost of the product itself they are not covering. Full average cost, not just variable costs. If they are not covering their full average cost also, that means they are selling at a loss, but still they are selling in other countries. Why are they doing that? Whatever the reason it might be, but that is called as dumping. Usually, why is it done? Maybe excessive production. Sometimes it can be even done to resort to predatory pricing practice. When a manufacturer wants to enter into a market, they will start predatory pricing practice to drive out the established domestic producers from the market and to establish monopoly position. That is what happens. Practically, we can see that. Okay, I'm not saying they are really Indian manufacturers and all, but at least those were Indian brands. People forgot also. Micromax, Cellcon, remember some of these things? Carbon. These were all Indian names at least. Mobiles. Are they there still? No, they're all gone. Now what all we hear? Xiaomi, Vivo, Oppo, whatever the names, all Chinese names only. Brands also. Of course, those Micromax, everything, those phones were Chinese phones only. I'm not telling that they are manufactured actually in India, but at least the brands were Indian owned brands. Those are all sent out almost by these companies. And when they started, for example, if you take the Xiaomi as an example, Mi phone, what is popularly called, they started with such kind of predatory pricing, very low price and too much quality at that time. So naturally, that has disturbed many competitors, including some of the domestic producers in the market. So that's a kind of predatory pricing. Every country will do that, every manufacturer will try to do that to influence and get a maximum market share in other country. But if that is evident and proven that it is intentionally done, then it is definitely dumping. All the examples we are taking, we cannot prove that. We are only looking at them because we saw them. We assume that could be the reason. Now, after some time, the same level of predatory pricing practices are not there. Now it is almost all the people and all the mobile phone manufacturers are selling the mobiles more or less at the same price. But initially, when they introduce their products in the market, they go for predatory pricing practices. Dumping can be one way of predatory pricing practices. But this dumping is unfair and it constitutes a threat to the domestic producers. Of course, yes. And therefore, when dumping is found, when the government feels that a particular country or a manufacturer from a particular country is resorting to dumping, then what is the response of the government? It will levy anti-dumping duties. as a safeguard instrument to offset the effects of dumping. So dumping was intended to sell some product at a very low price in another country. So how to offset that objective, how to hamper that objective, what is the defense mechanism for our country or any country for that matter which is levying anti-dumping duties is levy a big amount of anti-dumping duty. Lot of countries do this. America does that, China does that, India does that. On the other countries, whenever they feel that there is a lot of flood of imports coming from another country, which is going to affect the domestic market, to protect the domestic market from this entire flood of the goods coming from other entire world almost we can say, then they will resort to levying anti-dumping duties. So this all effect of this dumping should be nullified. That's what the governments try to do. That is called anti-dumping duties. So what is dumping? What is anti-dumping duty? Dumping is the practice where manufacturers from foreign countries sell their products or services in domestic market below their full average cost or below the prices which they would have sold in their domestic market. As a part of the practice of predatory pricing or to establish monopoly position and completely drive out the domestic producers from the market, dumping may be practiced or resorted by foreign manufacturers as a shield or as a safeguard to reduce the effects of such dumping practices. Governments might impose anti-dumping duties. That is the concept of anti-dumping duties. Now, another very important short note question is countervailing duties. Countervailing duties are popularly called as CVD, countervailing duties. These duties are the tariffs that aim to offset means balance out the artificially low prices charged by the exporters who enjoy export subsidies and tax concessions offered by the governments in their own home country. So a lot of governments will offer incentives for exports. A lot of export incentives are given. I'll just give an example once again, not with numbers, but concept I definitely know because of my friends there. Canada, for example, gives tremendous subsidies to canola oil. Canola oil, which is very expensive in India, is manufactured in Canada mostly, and government of Canada gives a heavy subsidy to that. Just as an example, if you take, let us say 100 rupees is the real cost or selling price of a canola oil bottle, whatever the size of that may be, the government of Canada itself will give 60 rupees to this person who is exporting this canola oil to some other countries. Means what? This person effectively can sell that anything more than 40 is profit to him. So he can sell, let us say, at 50 rupees in another country, still it is a 10 rupees profit to him. Of course, I am looking at a generic example, transport costs, other costs, those all apart. So what happened? The original cost of this canola oil was 100, but artificially the price of this in the country which has imported has become 50. So this artificially low prices charging mechanism has happened because of what? Because the government of Canada is giving subsidy to this person 60 rupees. He doesn't bother about really selling it at the market price in the imported country. So what happens? This person, whoever is exporter, he got 50 rupees from the real business, 60 rupees from government of Canada, total he got 110 rupees. He is happy, he got profit. He got profit. So he is not at loss. But who is at loss? Of course, in this example, if there is a canola oil manufacturing in India, it is a different story. We are only taking an example. Since there is no canola oil in India available, we cannot say there is a competing product for that. But there are other oils which might have impact, which might be impacted by this canola oil. If let us say, slowly canola oil can be sold in India cheaper than sunflower oil, which we are manufacturing, or cheaper than groundnut oil, which we manufacture, rice bran oil, all these things we manufacture in India. By the way, canola oil is an edible oil. Then our manufacturing cost of, let us say, our selling price of a sunflower oil is 90 rupees. And imagine if a canola oil is available in the market for 50 rupees. All the people in India might shift to canola oil because that is cheaper. For them, it is beneficial. But the problem is what? Those Manufacturers of all sunflower oil, groundnut oil, all those types of oils, they are all gone. Those will all shut down their plants. So much of unemployment will generate, economic activity of India will go down. That's the problem with imports, particularly when the foreign governments are giving subsidies to the exporters. And this is a real life example, by the way. Only numbers are not real. Example is real. Canada gives tremendous subsidy to canola oil exporters from their country. So what is India's response to that? Simple. We will levy heavy customs duty on that in the form of a countervailing duty. So what the response of India for this? Okay, boss, you wanted to sell this at 50 rupees in India, no problem, sell it. Now, over and above 50 rupees, you pay 60 rupees to me, which your government anyway is giving you a subsidy, you give it to me. So now you can price this product only at 110, you cannot price it at 50. So what is the net advantage for this exporter? Nothing. Actually, indirectly, Canadian government is giving money to Indian government. Indirectly, that's what happened. But will it encourage the export of canola oil from Canada to India if this is the response from our side? No. So slowly that will be demotivated, discouraged indirectly through levying of countervailing duties. So whenever exporters enjoy export subsidies in any one country, whatever the subsidy they are enjoying in general will be nullified by the other country by levying countervailing duties. That is why a very important tool throughout the world is this CVD, countervailing duties. If a foreign country does not have a comparative advantage in a particular good, and only a government subsidy allows the foreign firm to be an exporter of the product, then the subsidy generates a distortion from the free trade allocation of resources. That's what we have seen. Ideally, the cost of this product was 100 rupees, but it was readily available for 40 or 50, which means this distortion happened only due to the subsidy given by the Canadian government to the manufacturers and exporters of canola oil, which is not really representing the free trade allocation of resources. That is a problem. Problem is reality. We are not going to change the Canada government's policy. That is their policy. We will have our policy. Let them have their policy. We will have our policy. Our policy would be what? Our defense is what? Countervailing duty. In that example. Like that. Other countries will levy countervailing duties on our products also. Don't think it is only one way. Because we are looking at Indian example, we are taking our defense mechanism. When our products are sold in other countries, they will also have countervailing duties because India also gives incentives to our exporters. Any country gives incentives to the exporters. But in order to nullify that effect of price distortion due to such incentives, the importing countries might levy countervailing duties is the point to be understood here. In such cases, CVD, countervailing duties, is charged on an importing country to negate the advantage that exporters get from the subsidies to ensure fair and market-oriented pricing of imported products and thereby protecting the domestic industries and firms. Ultimately, the objective is this only, protecting the domestic industries and firms. If we never had CVD, canola oil will be sold in India at 50. Our people, sunflower oil people and all others will sell at 90. Slowly this will go. Our people will become jobless, industries will shut down. Now with the levy of countervailing duty, canola oil will be expensive in India. Just as an example, if you just go, if at all, don't have to buy, see any time when you have opportunity to see canola oil available in supermarkets and check the price of that. It will be very heavy. Is it really that much heavy? Original cost and original all the transportation, everything put together also? No. Major component of that price is customs duty, of course, in the form of countervailing duty. That is why the price of canola oil is very heavy in India. Again, I am telling this is real. But numbers what I am showing are not real. Those are examples. The story is real. Story is that canola oil is expensive in India due to the countervailing duties that India levies on them. Because of the export incentives given by Canada government, the original price of canola oil that is imported will be very cheap actually. And if that is the price at which we allow that to be sold in our market, most of the people will shift to that. That is dangerous. That is why we levy a countervailing duty and keep the price of canola oil high in our market. Now also people buy. I am not telling people will not buy. But at least what? It is like a luxury. It is like something which is upper middle class, rich class oil now. If this countervailing duty is removed, anybody can use canola oil and all these other oils will just go away. That much of canola oil is manufactured in Canada, it seems. One of my friends is in that business, so he told me. Quantities wise, they have the capacity to supply to the entire South India according to their production capacities. So that will flood our market. All our existing oil manufacturers will just go for toss. India, of course, as a government, will never allow that. So that is the nature of countervailing duties, to protect the domestic industries and to nullify the positive impacts that the exporters get from their own countries through export incentives, and to nullify or reverse the artificially low prices which are charged by one country's manufacturer on exporting goods to another country. These are called countervailing duties. Very important names. These are all tariff measures only. We are in the first segment. What are the tariff measures? Which are financial charges by an importing country in general on the goods or services which are imported. What are the different types of tariff? Specific tariff, ad valorem tariff, and so many other types of tariffs, mixed, compound, etc., etc. Anti-dumping duties can be levied also in some circumstances. Countervailing duties also can be levied in some circumstances. Anti-dumping, countervailing, both are not same. We have to understand that. Anti-dumping generally is resorted by the exporters themselves to maybe get rid of the excessive stocks that they have, or to capture a market with predatory pricing. That is the private decision actually of an export, which is countered by a government by levying anti-dumping duty. But this one, countervailing duties, is not just the decision of a private person, it is due to the other government's policy. The price of a product is artificially low, and due to the importing government's policy, that will be again brought back to up through countervailing duties. These are the different types of tariff measures that the countries can take as part of their trade policy. And what are the effects of tariffs? A very important question, perfect for a 3 marks question. 6 points you have to write, 3 marks. Very, very possible question. What are the effects of tariffs? They create obstacles to trade. Yes. They reduce the prospect of market access. Anyone just like that cannot go to another country and access that market just like that freely. No. They restrict it. They create obstacles to trade, reduce the prospect of market access. They make the imported goods more expensive. Naturally, we have seen that. And they increase the consumption of domestic goods. That is objective. And protect the domestic industries. And also at the same time increase the government revenues. These are all, we can call them as effects of tariffs. 6 points are there. All the 6 points are important. You have to remember them. Creating obstacles to trade, reducing the prospect of market access, or we can simply say restricting market access. Creating obstacles to trade, restricting market access, making imported goods more expensive, increasing the consumption of domestic goods, protecting the domestic industries, and increasing the government revenues. These are all the various effects of tariffs. Now moving on to the second segment of this instrument of trade policy, those are non-tariff measures. First segment was tariff measures, which we completed. Now let us move on to the second segment, non-tariff measures. Non-tariff measures are popularly called also NTMs. These are the policy measures other than ordinary customs tariffs. Naturally, name itself indicates those measures which are not tariff measures or non-tariff measures. But still they can potentially have an economic effect on the international trade in the goods, changing the quantities traded or prices or both. So these are also part of the trade policy, but they are not implemented through financial charge. They are implemented through some other effect or some other mechanism, but still the impact of them will be definitely economic effect. And what things these non-tariff measures might change is 1. Quantities traded, 2. Prices, 3. Both. Quantities traded may be changed because of this. Once again, there are only 2 options. Either we encourage or discourage. Only 2 things. Either you increase or decrease. Only 2 things. But in whatever direction it is, the number of units which are traded or the prices of the units or both are impacted by these non-tariff measures, but still they are not customs tariffs. They are not customs duties. Those are called non-tariff measures. And they comprise of all the measures which alter the conditions of international trade, including policies and regulations that restrict the trade and those that facilitate it. Once again, only two options. Either we restrict it or we facilitate it. Either we encourage or we discourage. Discourage is restriction, encourage is facilitation. Both types of policies will be there. For some types of goods, we'll lay a red carpet. We'll say, oh, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please come to our country. For some other types of goods, we say, don't enter. We'll say, get out. We'll not even let them in. Some kinds of goods. Depends upon our policy. Regulations and policies and measures which are taken, which might either restrict the trade or the policies which might facilitate it are part of non-tariff measures. So these are mostly in the form of non-monetary measures, but still they may have a financial impact or an economic impact also. They may have an impact on the quantity also, price also, or both also. These type of measures are non-tariff measures. Once we look at the types of non-tariff measures, we can understand them in a bit easier manner. But still, name indicates half of that. They are not duties, that is for sure. And depending upon their scope or design, these NTMs, the non-tariff measures, can be categorized into two categories: technical measures and non-technical measures. So naturally we have to look at both. So within the non-tariff measures, there are technical measures and non-technical measures. So first let us look at technical measures. What are the technical measures? So technical measures refer to the product specific properties such as characteristic of the product, technical specifications and production processes. That is the kind of measures which will specify product specific properties. For example, just only example, India may say, I will not allow any kind of French fries which have been stored in the fat of, let us say, cows. May be possible, they are stored somewhere. Like that, if it is done, we don't like it. We don't want to have such kind of product. So we may say no. We have a kind of specification for each of the things. That is the point. So technical measures will tell specifications about the product properties. Lot of things, particularly like food related items and all, will have specifications. Everything and anything the other countries cannot export to us. No, they cannot. There are so many restrictions on that. And who is giving the restrictions? In our example, India is definitely putting such kind of restrictions by taking technical measures which specify the product specific properties like characteristics of the product, technical specifications and the production process also. We don't want to import any commodity with a particular production process. If some commodity is manufactured like this, no, we don't want that. We may say that, that is our choice. Like that. So technical measures are those related to the technical characteristics of the product, we can say. And these measures are intended for ensuring what? Product quality, because we don't want to import things which are of lesser quality. Imagine even, okay, we are only not looking at only food always. Food safety is, of course, is one of the very important things, no doubt. But even look at the technical things. Chinese mobiles, lot of times, not now, earlier we used to hear this, no? When they were charged, those were blasting and all. Poor quality mobiles, if all of them come to India, imagine, most of the poor quality Chinese mobiles, if they are all coming to India, and they are like, they have almost like planted a bomb in each house in India. That's what effectively it is. It is not like selling mobiles. It may be a war. So that's a danger. So naturally what Indian government will do, it will ensure that or put some regulations that quality checking has to happen about those products. Product quality has to be of a sufficient level. Even another example, lot of Chinese mobiles earlier used to come without IMEI number. For every mobile there is a number called a specific number, IMEI number, you might be knowing that. Earlier, Chinese mobiles used to just flood to India without even IMEI number, means you cannot even track that. Then India banned such mobiles without IMEI number, no boss, we will not allow. You need to give all these details related to your instrument. These technical details. These are all technical details. You give these details, then only I will allow you to export to my country and I will import from your country only. Then like that we have put restrictions on that. So product quality related restrictions, food safety restrictions, environmental protection. Biodiversity is also an important thing. Imagine if India imports lot of meat from the other countries, that is going to be dangerous to the existing people who are consuming that. Environmental protection also matters. Biodiversity matters. There cannot be natural commodities like fruits, vegetables, or animals which are imported from other country. Just for example, nobody can take a live fruit or a vegetable or a seed, we can say, to another country. Legally speaking, if you try to take some seeds, just seeds, try to take some sesame seeds or like let us say original dhania seeds, go to America, in the customs itself they will throw them out in the dustbin. Why? Because they don't allow anybody else, any other natural product should not enter into their country. They want to have their own biodiversity, otherwise that might hamper, lot of issues might come. In spite of all these things keep on moving, that is a different story. Now viruses are also moving very freely, all like that. But restrictions are there, measures are definitely there to ensure product quality, food safety, environmental protection, national security, and protection of animal and plant health. Even you can write the word biodiversity also. These are the major reasons why the technical measures are all taken. But still there are two types of technical measures. One is SPS measures, second one is Tbt measures. Let us look at each of them one by one. What are SPS measures? You have to remember these names. Sanitary and phytosanitary measures, SPS measures. Most of the things as examples we have looked at now, those are all SPS measures only. These are applied to protect human, animal or plant life of our country from the risks arising from other things coming from other countries in the form of additives, pests, contaminants, toxins or disease causing organisms, and to protect biodiversity. These are the measures which are taken called SPS measures. From other country, if we bring any animals live or plants live or any seeds live, that is a crime. That because it affects the biodiversity. And any other things also like chemicals, viruses, bacteria, toxins, contaminants should not be allowed into our country through any other mode. Not necessarily, don't think that all these things will come only from people. We always only imagine that. Of course, things like coronavirus and all might have been started from people only to people. But there might be so many other things which are disease causing organisms might be part of products also. Maybe part of the products also. They are attached to that. Unless we check them properly, unless we have proper measures in place, which are called SPS measures, sanitary and phytosanitary measures. We want our country clean, boss. As simple as that. Within this, within our country, whatever we do, it is okay. It is our headache. Swachh Bharat and all, we will take care of it. But anything coming from outside India to India, we will not allow it just like that. How can we allow? We will not. So what we will do? We will take SPS measures, trying to restrict any of these things to enter into our country, which can damage our people, our animals, our plants, or our biodiversity through additives, pests, contaminants, toxins, or any other disease causing organisms. Such measures, whatever are taken, are called as sanitary and phytosanitary measures. For example, prohibition of import of poultry from the countries affected by the avian flu. Earlier there was the bird flu, and at that time the countries which were affected by that flu, means birds, poultry, was banned from that country because the poultry imported might have spread avian flu within our country also. So why would we import poultry from such country which is affected with bird flu? We are so very much interested to get bird flu or what? Nobody will do that. So we prohibit that. We ban that. And same way, meat and poultry processing standards are fixed to reduce the pathogens. We don't need to be experts of all this. But certain types of measures are taken. Anything cannot be imported or exported from one country to another country, particularly related to food. SPS measures are majorly related to the food items. And the residue limits for chemicals in the foods also are prescribed. All the countries will not allow the same thing. A lot of people may be not knowing, because things like McDonald's are banned in some countries. McDonald's is banned in some countries. Why? Because according to their food standards, the McDonald's food contains a lot of toxins which are not good for the health. The limits of chemicals, what according to their country standard, McDonald's is not meeting. And there is another problem with McDonald's and other big organizations like Burger King or Pizza Hut, etc. They will not manufacture anything locally, including the French fries that we eat in McDonald's are imported. They are not some potatoes made in India. Those potatoes are somewhere made, we don't know. And the oil which they import and within which they are frying also, what is that mostly we don't know. A lot of problems are there, means the transparency is not that much. Even if it is there, transparency wise, that is not acceptable to some countries. So they said, no boss, we don't want McDonald's. Lot of countries, McDonald's is banned. A lot of countries, certain chocolates are banned because their standards, these products are not meeting. We may not be having that much strict measures, but we might have strict measures on the particularly meat related products. Any meat just like that cannot enter into our country. Do we like import heavily any beef from the other countries? No, we don't. Because in fact, within India also we banned that. So we are not interested in that. That is not part of our food policy. So what happens? In general, our policies will be in a way to prohibit or discourage the consumption of beef, particularly the cow beef. We don't do that. That is maybe against the general tendency of the Indian psychology, let us say. In spite of that, whether it is good, bad or other thing debatable, government wants it that way, so government will do according to what it wants. So that is how there will not be much of encouragement to something. Otherwise, in the entire world, if we see, forget about India for 1 minute, what do people eat daily? Daily morning after waking up till they actually sleep. What do they eat? I think they're going to eat only carrots, aloo, samosa and all. No, definitely not. Most of the people in the world eat beef only. That is a huge market. Huge. Not just some people eating, some people not eating. So in that world market, our place, as far as exporters is concerned, is good. But whereas importing is concerned, we don't need to, because that is not something what we encourage. Like this, every country will have its own policies. Countries like New Zealand, Australia are the biggest, huge exporters of meat. The New Zealand population may be almost less than 1 crore or 50 lakhs. But the population of sheep in that is almost like 20 times, 30 times bigger than the human beings. Those many sheep are there. So that is how it is. They encourage the exports of that. And other countries will import it. Imagine suddenly the world says, no, I don't want any meat from New Zealand. Gone. New Zealand economy itself is in trouble. So the point is, this international trade always depends upon the policies. That is what we are calling as trade policies. And within that, some tariff measures will be taken by the countries. Some non-tariff measures also will be taken by the countries, which include technical measures and non-technical measures. Within technical measures, SPS measures are generally taken against the food items and other natural living being things, wherein any country would like to protect its own nature, environment and biodiversity. These type of measures are all called SPS measures. Then, second type of technical measure is called Tbt measures. Tbt measures are basically what? Technical barriers to trade, which cover both food and non-food traded products. So usually these SPS measures are mostly for food products, mostly. These measures, Tbt measures can be there for food products also, non-food products also, referring to the mandatory standards and technical regulations. So this is about technical regulations that define the specific characteristics that a product should have. Means, if at all a particular mobile phone should be imported to India, it cannot have a size more than this. We will specify. Or it cannot have a weight more than this. We will specify. This shape it should be, this design it should be, or it should not be. Labeling should be like this. Marking should be like this. Packing should be like this. Functionality should be like this. Performance and production methods should be like this. All these things we will specify. Either like this or not like this. So labeling should not contain this, marking should not contain this, shape should not be like this. All this we can specify. So lot of specific technical measures can be taken, or technical specifications can be mentioned to naturally either encourage or discourage imports. But Tbt measures, when we are looking at as a technical barriers to trade, they are excluding the measures which are covered by already SPS agreement. When it is already in SPS, why would it come in Tbt once again? So SPS measures, if they are there already, those are different. In addition to them, any country can take Tbt measures also, which will cover not only food products, even non-food products also are covered under Tbt measures, wherein mandatory standards and technical regulations can be specified with the specific characteristics of the product to be complied by the exporters to our country. That specifications could be in any of these things: size, shape, design, labeling, marking, packing, functionality, performance, production methods, any of these things. These measures are all called Tbt measures. Those are the two technical measures within non-tariff measures. One is SPS, second one is Tbt. Now moving on to non-technical measures, the list is actually endless. So many measures can be taken. Let us just quickly go through some of them. Non-technical measures relate to the trade requirements, for example, shipping requirements, customs formalities, trade rules, taxation policies, etc. These are non-technical measures. We can make the life of exporters, means those who are exporting to our country, hell. We can do that. We can say so many customs formalities they have to follow. They exported goods to our country, okay, done. Export happened, super. Ship came. After that, we will not let that ship in only. We will say there are 100 formalities to be followed. If you follow all of them, then only we will allow your goods to our country. Indirectly, what we are doing? We are not welcoming them. Indirectly. But we will not say openly, because we are already part of WTO and we signed so many free trade agreements. We will not tell that openly we don't want to allow you. Indirectly, we'll put regulations in such a manner that nobody in the world will be feeling that I will have to export goods to India. Imagine I'm telling, not that we are really doing it. If we do that, those are all non-technical measures. We'll create the customs formalities like that, shipping requirements like that, and trade rules, taxation policies like that. Once again, this can be again encouraging also, discouraging also. We can make their life easy also, we can make their life hell also. It is in our hands. That is one way of non-technical measures. Another way of non-technical measures is import quotas. This is a popular measure. Quota is always about quantity. So how much of amount or quantity of the goods of particular specification can be imported is specified. Beyond that, you cannot import at all. Let us say for a particular importer of mobile phones, in a year he can import only 1 lakh mobile phones, let us say. That is his quota. He cannot import one more phone also beyond that. Thereby we are restricting the overall quantity of imports. So those are called import quotas. Same way, price control measures can be there. Imposing taxes on charges is a kind of tariff measure only. Non-automatic licensing and prohibitions. Prohibitions means certain types of imports can be prohibited, limited, and we may say that licensing is not automatic. You have to go through a lot of procedure for import license. Means we are discouraging imports once again. Again, financial measures can be taken by regulating access to the cost of foreign exchange. So foreign exchange, we will not make it available freely. So we will make it difficult to deal with our foreign exchange. But kind of financial measure. Or we can take measures affecting the competition by granting exclusive or special preference to one or few limited group of economic operations. By reducing the competition, we are going to encourage some specific preference to one or few limited groups. This is all possible, so that we have a big person who is competing with the importers. We can put one kind of a powerful person in front of them. That is possible. Same way, government procurement policies can have very important rules, regulations which may discourage imports. Very crucial thing. For example, even in recent past, if you see, lot of defense related announcements have come from Indian government, which say for certain types of defense equipment or arms and ammunitions, they have banned the imports. Means we cannot import them at all from other countries. We have to manufacture them here only. Means what? Imports are not at all allowed. So only possibility is they have to be manufactured within India. Completely procurement policy of the government is that we will not buy if it is an imported product. We will only buy if it is a local product. That is the government's choice. Nobody can force a customer. Government is a customer in that case. So they can influence or restrict imports in such a way with their procurement policies being changed also. And then trade related investment measures may include rules on the local content requirements of production. This is also quite popular, local content requirements. For example, when there is IKEA furniture shop, huge one, that requires at least 30% or 40% of the procurement of its furniture to be happening within India. In that condition only, they have been allowed permission to open the stores within India. Local content requirements are there. Not only for them, even for Walmart, for them also. Certain percentage of procurement they have to do from the domestic market. They cannot import everything and sell here. No. Certain percentage they have to take from local market only. That is a rule. With that condition only, the permissions are granted to them for establishing their stores. That's an example of trade related investment measures. Distribution restrictions can be made. Also, restriction on the post sale service can be made. Administrative procedures can be created so tight that people feel vexed up exporting goods to India. Rules of origin. Recently, this is one more thing that is happening, because in most of the cases, Indian government is insisting that whether a particular product is made in China or not, to be shown, displayed. Is it a product from China? Rules of origin has to be displayed is the recent phenomena. Even in some of the e-commerce websites like Flipkart and Amazon, they are asked to show clearly whether this product is from China or not. That kind of rules can be kept. So determining the national source of a product can be compulsorily made. That kind of rules also can be implemented. These are all non-technical measures, but government has lot of things that it can do within its powers. But depending upon the situation, it will throw or use any of these non-technical measures. Safeguard measures can be taken by the countries to restrict the import of a product temporarily, if the domestic industry is injured. Such kind of measures can be taken. This is an important word, and a short note question can be asked also. Embargo. Embargo means what? Embargo is a total ban on import or export of some commodity. So, some commodity to a particular country or region or for some indefinite period. So, embargo means a total ban, simply speaking. Total ban of import or export of certain commodities to a particular country or region for some or indefinite period. For example, just to take in example, in the current scenario, United States of America has you can say announced embargo on Iran. Means no American company can supply any goods to Iran. Not now, since long time. Iran is under embargo from USA. Like that, North Korea is under embargo. Cuba was under embargo for a long time from USA. Like that, some other countries will have embargo on other countries. For example, Saudi Arabia may have embargo on Israel because of various political and other tensions. One country may completely ban import or export of some commodities from other countries. That situation is called embargo, and this is the toughest possible trade policy, we can say. This is the last resort, particularly when the countries have almost become enemy countries. Then only embargo will be announced. Otherwise, somehow the restrictions will be made in such a way to discourage the imports from other countries in general. Embargo means completely ban. No import, no export. In other words, the relationship between two countries or two regions or from one country and a region have been cut. Completely, that country on which the embargo has been announced is literally out of the international trade. It has been kicked out of the international trade, almost we can say that. But of course, once again, that does not mean no other country will export them. For example, if North Korea is under embargo from USA, that does not mean North Korea cannot import at all from other countries. China still exports to North Korea. North Korea has a lot of imports from China. Same way, Iran is under embargo from America, does not mean Iran is not going to get anything. Iran imports a lot of things from Russia, but not from America. No American product can be sold to Iran. One of the very interesting examples, one of our clients earlier, long back, which was an Iranian bank, they wanted a software. Bank needed a software. Unfortunately, what happened, that software was of American origin, that banking software. They could not sell. That software company could not sell that software to this Iranian bank directly. So they'll find a way, because anyway it is a software, not some real commodity of physical flow. What they have done is they have established a separate software consulting firm in some other country, say Singapore, and that Singapore company, which is a software consulting company, has purchased the software from the American company and then in turn gave it to the Iranian bank. This is all required because Iran had embargo from America. Otherwise, they would have rightly purchased it from America. So even a small thing like a software also, American companies cannot sell to Iranian companies officially, legally. That is what is embargo, and it's the strictest method or measure of international trade some countries might impose on the other countries. That is the non-technical measures, various types of non-technical measures that the governments can take. Once again, whenever we look at them for understanding purposes, we should always think our objective is to reduce imports, discourage imports. That is the way we have to look at it for understanding. But that does not mean always these measures are taken to discourage only. Sometimes measures may be taken to encourage also, depending upon the situation. But in general, any measures, whether tariff measures or non-tariff measures, whether technical measures or non-technical measures, all these are taken in general to discourage the imports and protect the domestic market, domestic industry. That is the ultimate objective. Sometimes these objectives may go beyond this small objective. They may go to the international politics. They may go to the other relationships with one country to another country. Reasons could be many, but the measures that many governments can take as part of the instruments of international trade are all these measures, we can say. That was the second category of measures which we were looking at. One was tariff measures, second was non-tariff measures, which included technical as well as non-technical measures. Now moving on to the last segment of this instruments of trade policy, export related measures also can be taken. Of course, so far we have been focusing on what? Imports. Mostly discouraging imports. Not necessarily, but mostly. That was all the tariff measures and non-tariff measures are in general aimed at. Now we are looking at the other side of it, that is exports. Related measures also can be taken. What are the kinds of measures that are possible? Maybe a ban of exports completely. Certain items, exports can be banned during shortages. In India, classical example for that is onions and rice also. When I was abroad, almost for the entire period I was abroad, during that period of time, normal rice from India was not available. Only basmati rice was available because the normal rice other than basmati export from India was banned. We never used to get normal rice there at all. Only basmati rice from India was available. All other categories of rice was banned. India banned it. Export means in other countries, we Indians, their NRIs, could not have such kind of other rices at all. Only basmati rice only was there. It's okay. It was also good, not bad. But the point is, options are not there. We cannot eat Thailand rice and all. Generally, we like our rice. So we have to depend upon one of the other categories of Indian basmati rice. That's all, like that. Because of what? Because of rice export itself was banned by the Indian government then. Like that, this onion ban, though, it is like a joke. It happens every now and then. 1 month it is there, 1 month it is not there. Like that, government will sometimes ban the exports whenever within the country there is a shortage. Natural, that is. Another export related measure could be export taxes. Usually, taxes or customs duties are levied on imports, but sometimes even government can levy export taxes also. What is an export tax? It is a tax collected on exported goods and maybe again either specific or ad valorem, and that is export taxes. When government will levy export taxes, if it wants to discourage the exports. Why it would like to discourage? Because maybe that particular commodity is more required in a domestic our territory than exporting. For example, during the time of medical emergencies like coronavirus and all, if some manufacturer in India is manufacturing PPE kits, but if he is interested in exporting them than selling to our own hospitals and doctors, then what the government can do, I'm not saying they have done that, what they can do is they can charge a export tax on these PPE kits. So the manufacturer has to sell these PPE kits outside India at a price which is higher than what he thought. So discouraging exports sometimes is required. Then what the government will do is export tax is levied. But that is not common, that is exceptional, rare. But in general, what is common is export subsidy. Export subsidy includes financial contribution to the domestic producers, various ways of subsidies the government will give. Indian government also gives grants, loans, equity infusion also sometimes. These are all provided as form of income or price support, both distort the trade. Trade in the sense trade prices and all. So basically, like any other government, our government also gives a lot of export incentives, export subsidies. How it gives, what are the different forms of export subsidies, all these things will be very well elaborately discussed in final as part of Customs Act. Right now, we just need to know that government has two choices. Either it can do export taxes, where it wants to discourage exports, where it can give export subsidies. In generally, what it does, those are called export incentives through the form of grants, loans, equity infusions, in the form of giving them income to the exporters or price support, which ultimately distort the trade. That is what is export subsidy. Export subsidy also, export taxes also will distort the trade, because either government wants to discourage exports or government wants to encourage exports. If these are not given, then the trade would have been different. Because these are given, trade is different. That is why we are telling that these are both possibly distorting the trade. That is a export subsidy or incentive. Same thing. Why export subsidies or incentives are given? To boost the exports. Now, another important short note question is VER. That is voluntary export restraints. Very important short question. What is VER? Voluntary export restraint. What are those? They are a type of informal quota administered by an exporting country. Exporting country is putting a restriction on itself. It is not putting a restriction on import, by the way. It is putting a restriction on itself. Which one? The exporting country. Voluntarily. That is why we are using it. Voluntarily. Restraining the quantity of the goods that can be exported out of a country during a specified period of time. For example, onion is not banned completely export. Maximum onions that can be exported in a particular year is limited to 1,000 tons or 1,000 lakh tons only, let us say, like that. If the government says, imagine some number, whatever. If the government says like that, that means it is a voluntary export restraint. It is not banning, but it is putting a restraint on the quantity of the goods that can be exported during a particular period. This will not be infinite, for a specified period of time. Usually when this is imposed based on the negotiations to appease means just to give the other government a little bit of happiness, the importing country, that is naturally the other side, and avoid the effects of possible trade restraints. So if there are two countries, if one country is angry with the other country, let us say America is angry with China. America is angry with China. Why? Because China is selling too many goods to America at lower prices. It is almost dumping them and all. Lot of trade that China is exporting to America. America is so angry that it is also going to impose restrictions on China, let us say. Possibly. So what the China might do, for a temporary period, it might tell, okay boss, don't worry, right now I have been selling this much of cloths to you. I will restrict the quantity of my exports to your country. So voluntarily I am putting a restraint on my export for a specified period of time. Like that, China will tell something, then America will be happy. All imaginary, yeah? China never says something like that, America will never say something like that. Of course, tensions will be there, trade wars, what they are calling, are there. There will be good relations also, bad relations also. These are all the things which common people cannot understand. Common people always think everything is binary, plus or minus. America or China. America good, China bad. China good, America bad. It will not be like that. It will never be like that. America is angry, China is afraid. China is angry, America is afraid. No, it will not be like that. It will be somewhere in between. It will not be just plus or minus. Somewhere in between the reality will be. All the people think Japan and China are enemies, and they are very, angry against each other. In one of the television debates earlier, no, a knowledgeable person only, but probably was under some false impression. He was arguing that Japan is more interested in India than China because China and Japan are enemies. China and Japan are enemies, yes, not now. Historically, they were enemies. Centuries together, they were enemies. But this gentleman does not know. Japan has invested more in any country, if at all. Number one was China only. The investments of Japan in China are so huge. When it compared to India, they are more than 10 times. If let us say Japan invested $1 billion in India, it would have invested $10 billion in China or more than that. That much investment it had in China. So enemies, good things, bad things, Trump coming out and shouting at China, Jinping coming out and shouting on something, Putin talking something about other person, all these things are different. Politics, people talk so many things. In spite of, just for general understanding, in spite of America openly calling the coronavirus as China virus, openly, almost we can say demeaning and a kind of defaming China by calling one virus as a China virus. Trump has been repeatedly using that word. In spite of that, one simple fact we cannot forget. Who are the ones who sent masks to America? What masks Americans are using? American made masks? No sir, China made masks. What PPE equipment the American doctors are using? China made equipments. So in spite of all that also, business is business. Business is something which keeps on happening. It depends upon so many other factors. But if a particular country wants to put a restraint on itself voluntarily for a particular period of time in order to appease the other country for temporarily, then it is called voluntary export restraint. Don't write any of these examples in exam. Not to be written like that. It's only for understanding purposes. You have to write only the theory, not the reality in the exam. Reality is only for understanding. So what is VER? It is basically a kind of informal quota administered by the exporting country on itself, voluntarily restraining the quantity of goods that can be exported out of that country during a specified period of time, usually based on the negotiations with other importing country to appease that country and avoid the effects of possible trade restraints. This is what you should write exactly in order to get full marks for any question. Whatever the question it might be in AFF, you have to use correct words and correct sentences. Then meaning should be conveyed, not just dry words. Meaning of that, what we understand should be conveyed effectively. Then definitely good marks can be expected from any of these questions. So VER is a very crucial, important question. These are various aspects related to the instruments of trade policy, we can say. As we have observed, we have looked at tariff measures, non-tariff measures, export related measures. These are the three different areas of instruments of trade policy. With that we can conclude unit 2 of chapter 4, and in the next session we'll continue with unit 3 of chapter 4. Till then, take care, bye bye, thank you very much.